Welcome to the Raising Values podcast, where the traditional family talks. You can find us on iTunes, Stitcher, and Spotify, and be sure to follow us on Facebook and Instagram. You can support the Raising Values podcast through Patreon. Phil and Gillian are behind the mic, and we hope you enjoy the show.
Good morning and welcome back to Raising Values. This might wind up being a shorter topic, but knowing the two of us and our proclivity for
talking.
Well, like once we get embedded in a topic, we tend to just chase the rabbit. So this might wind up being a whole hour, but it might not. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. So this one is, the topic today is forgive but don't forget. And it's kind of been... It's kind of been like happening in my life a lot lately. So it's really like a current event to me. So I know I say this a lot, but when like Phil and I are like, well, what are we going to talk about on Sunday? What are we going to talk about on Sunday? Sometimes I was in the bathtub and I was like, Phil, I know what we're going to do. Forgive, but don't forget. I guess I have to kind of start with backstories and like what's really been going on without giving away too much information because the people involved, they probably don't want their business out there. And I don't want to ever use this show as a platform to drag people through the mud and make them look like the
awful people,
the crappy people that they are. The tendencies that they have, that the habits that they have that are not the nicest to people.
Well, the point of the show is to talk about things in our regular life, which is why this came up this week. And it's also to kind of like offer perspective to people that are listening and watching that they might find helpful. It's not to dunk on somebody else,
right,
who's not here to defend themselves.
Right. So I don't ever want to do that. And I'm not going to use names. I'm probably not even going to use pronouns, not in that way. But anyway, so I will say that my sisters and I have been talking a lot this week. And, sometimes we talk and past events get brought up or current events get brought up or whatever. So we talk about what's going on in each other's life. And just like anybody else, we reflect back on things that have happened in our life and people that have created ripple effects just by their actions or things that they say and do and things like that, which everyone that listens to this podcast, anyone in the world can relate to that because everyone has dynamics, relationship dynamics with people, whether it's a coworker or a friend or a family member or anything like that. Your actions will ripple through that person and then the other people that are involved in their life, because ultimately, if I do something to you and you get in a bad mood, Piper's going to feel that. And then it could affect Piper in her day at school or whatever. So my actions just kind of ripple down.
And to take it like one step further to 3 points removed, like if you have an interaction with someone outside of this family, at work or a friend or just random person on the street, and that upsets you and you bring that energy back into the house, it's affecting me and Piper when we weren't even party to the original offense. So, right. There's definitely, I feel like, because I'm the one that, she told me what she wanted to talk about, I chose the title, and I think forgive but don't forget is like a really important standard to focus on, because despite forgiving being like one of my greatest difficulties, just as a function of my personality, like I recognize that I am a very, I don't want to use the word spiteful, very vengeful person. Like in my mind, I've always kind of grown up with this idea that a wrong must be redressed, a wrong must be avenged. And I've found that as I've gotten older, I've had to make a conscious effort to just let things go because of the energy I carry by not forgiving. But I do think that to forgive and to forget are two very opposite things.
Yeah, I guess too. I want to say, the reason the title of the show was bounced around between you and I so much is because it's a phrase, forgive and forget, that I grew up on hearing forgive and forget, but it's also a phrase that's been used by someone very close who doesn't necessarily, isn't really asking for forgiveness, just really wants, just forget about it, and let's move on.
Just let it go.
Let it go, let's move on. And so, being the Christian person that I am, I did quite some research, because it's often been used, especially recently, I feel like, as and it's probably not the right word, but kind of like a gaslighting tactic by this person. Maybe not intentionally, but that's what it is. Forgive and forget. You need to forgive and forget.
And by many more people than just this person.
Well, yeah. And I think people use this phrase because they want to just be absolved of whatever wrong they've done without facing the hard consequences of what that wrong has done to that person. And so I started doing some research because with the forgive and forget phrase that's been kind of thrown around lately, it's also been taglined with, well, God wants you to forgive and forget. God commanded us to forgive and forget. So I dug into the Bible. And nowhere in the Bible does God command us to forgive and forget. He does command us to forgive. Forgive the sin so that you too will be forgiven.
Yep.
I think it's in Matthew. I might be wrong, but I think it's in Matthew.
Which, at least from my reading, really means like if you hold a grudge, then you cannot expect absolution of your own sins, be they minor or major.
Yeah.
Which makes total sense in that context. It's like we have to have a forgiving heart to ask for forgiveness. We must give forgiveness. Mm-hmm. It's Christianity in its most base form. This spirit of like regarding your neighbor as your brother in Christ or sister in Christ. Now,
okay, so let's remove the Christian aspect from it and just go to the forgive part. Forgiveness, and I was telling a friend this last night, forgiveness is not for that person. Forgiveness is for you.
I feel like it can be, though.
See, we talked about this yesterday, you and I, and you were saying one thing, and
well, as is typical, especially on the show, like we don't always see things exactly eye to eye.
Right. No, we don't, and that's part of the show. But
it's part of marriage.
Well, true. I do believe, though, that forgiving someone does, cliche, does set you free. If I forgive that person, I then can move on. I can like get past it a little bit better. But forgiving that person is not to make them feel better. It's for me to know that I've dealt with it. I've run it through my brain 1,000 times. I've created scenarios, or I've walked through scenarios, or I've done something like I have totally beat this thing into the ground, and now I'm to the point where I can forgive. And so it's kind of like going through a grieving process almost of, okay, I've gone through all these steps. I forgive that person. But and most people, hopefully most people, once that forgiveness has been given, I'm not going to forget what that person has done and what they're capable of. And that's where I have to like put on the brakes whenever I'm told, well, just forgive and forget. Maybe this person didn't mean to hurt your feelings. And I have really tried to teach my students and really try to help myself to always assume positive intent. Like maybe that person didn't mean what they said. Maybe he didn't take your pencil on purpose. He just saw it and thought maybe it was his. I mean, pencils look the same or whatever. So I try to tell my students to assume positive intent. But when a pattern is repeated so many times, and throughout my life, this pattern has been repeated and repeated and repeated. And as I get older and older, I realize what in the hell is happening and what always has happened. And, I watch the relationship with my sisters and my niece and, people that are in the family. And I see that they get a lot of the same treatment and the same gaslighting and the same treatment from different people that do this. And what it has done for me is different from what it has done to others that this person or these people continue to do. So like my reaction was always, and I've said this in past episodes, I've always been the peacemaker, whether it's in my family or it's in my friendships or it's in some other little, even at work with coworkers. And, I've always been the peacemaker. And so that, unfortunately, has been my duty in life. And I was thrust into that. I certainly wouldn't have picked peacemaker for myself.
You wouldn't have. I think, honestly, it suits your personality,
yeah, but I didn't pick it.
No, you didn't pick that. That was kind of your assigned role. But
and peacemaker is such a soft word, but peacemaker is such a hard job.
It is, absolutely.
Because you're taking on all of the, help me with my words, stress of a situation to try to make sure that everyone else feels better and is taken care of and feels loved and feels compassion. And
you feel all that stress until everybody else's needs are met, and that's before you can even address your own.
Right. And so a lot of times it's like you you power up, you train for a race or whatever, but you do it and you've worked really hard, but you don't do the cool down part. Like you just automatically just fall and you're just kind of left there. Like in my head, like I'm thinking of like I'm running, taking care of all these people, and then I'm just a pile of just nothing on the floor because I don't have anything left in me to take care of myself. And I did that a lot up until Piper was probably 4, maybe 5 years old. Mm-hmm. And I continued to repeat to myself, like my mantra was, you can't pour from an empty cup. You can't pour from an empty cup. And the other thing that I would always say to myself is, you can't be a mom unless you take care of yourself. Like you have to take care of yourself so you can take care of her. Well, then I started to apply that to other relationships that I had. Like I have to take care of myself. I have to block out the toxicity, the negativity, the things that throw off my energy, that maybe I'm giving energy to them, but they're not giving me the energy back. So those relationships and those situations either have ended or they have been given some very strict stipulations on how they can be a part of my life. Anyway, I have to remember everything that those people have done because they're capable of doing it again. Mm-hmm. And sometimes, like, for instance, the relationship that my sisters have with these people, it's going to be a little bit different. Like, and when I say sisters, I'm lumping in my niece with them too, because my niece is pretty much my youngest sister.
Pretty much.
But, we all make different decisions on what the forget part is, like the don't forget part is, and the actions we take for that. I still have a relationship to a degree with some people that really cause a ruckus in my life. They're held at arm's length. They do not come around unless I say they can come around, and then when they do come around, it's on my terms and conditions. And I am now not afraid to say it's time to go, or, we've really got something else to do today. Y'all need to leave, kind of thing. Other times it's it's to the total opposite end of no contact, nothing. These people are completely out of my life now.
They've been invited to the block party.
Yes, yeah. And it's a sad situation, and there's a lot of guilt that goes with that. A lot of guilt. And unfortunately, I've had to have some really hard conversations with my niece, because she's going through something where someone has hurt her so immensely, so badly, that she's not even to a place where she can talk about what's going on with that person. Mainly because I'm afraid she's going to punch him.
Well,
she might.
but even, I mean, just emotionally, like, I think from my perspective at least, the problem specific to her is she is still so emotionally aggravated. And I don't want to use the word aggravated in the way of like she's angry, but she's so emotionally aggravated. She's raw. I don't think she yet has the ability to confront that person without immediately falling victim to that person's gaslighting.
Yeah.
So she has chosen to kind of like break contact, establish a boundary and some space to give her some time to heal and sort through and compartmentalize, which I kind of understand, because I work a lot. I operate a lot the same way. When you know this about me from 18 years of being together, when I'm really upset with somebody, I don't want to talk to that person. I want, like, take a deep breath, back off, give me space, let me sort through what's in my head, and I will come to you to discuss, like, how I felt and the conclusions I've come to and what I'm asking for, so that I can let that emotion out and let go of it. But, like, continuing to pester me in the moment, all that's going to do is make me push harder, because I cannot, it's not that I don't want to deal with you, I can't. And unless I'm just totally like, putting Phil on this person, that's what I'm seeing from them.
Yeah. And it's hard too, because the person that we are continuing to deal with is, I mean, we're very close to this person. But this person has a mental illness. Maybe not. Hang on, I'm thinking.
Well,
maybe not diagnosed mental illness, but definitely a mental illness. Like, I want to say that this person hasn't been diagnosed with a mental illness because when they go to the doctor, they're not honest with the doctor about what's going on. So not only is this person gaslighting family and friends, they're gaslighting their own doctors into making them believe that they're better than what they are.
And gaslighting themselves.
Well, yeah, absolutely. But all that does is make it worse. But on top of that, this person is also a narcissist. Classic narcissist. And I guess, I mean, it really wasn't until maybe 5-6 years ago that I really started putting together and researching what a true narcissist is and the control that narcissists have and the things that they do to keep that control. And that was when a lot of this person's world started to crumble.
The story started to unravel.
These false realities that they had built were starting to really fall away, because everyone was given a different reality by this person. They were told different lies. They were told different things to create this false reality, and in turn was trying to drive a wedge between a lot of my family members, including my sisters, my aunts and uncles, trying to really drive a wedge between those people, to the point where we were even asked, to not communicate with family members. They did not want us to communicate with family members. And with being told that also came a lot of the lies about these family members, and this family member is doing this and they're saying this, and did you know that they said this about you, and did you know that they whatever. I mean, there was just lie upon lie upon lie upon lie, and I was actually, this sounds really crazy, I was actually pretty impressed that this person had held it together for that long, for so long, because I mean, hang on, one of the comments says, my sister is very much diagnosed and a total narcissist. Everything is the fault of others, never any accountability.
Does that sound familiar?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Everything for this person is absolved in their head. They are at no fault ever.
And any attempt to levy consequences for behavior is viewed as I'm being picked on, or
I'm being bullied. I'm being picked on. You don't understand how hard it is.
Don't love me.
Yeah, and then so she's this oops, this person just thrusts the guilt onto people, and people, I mean, family members and friends were just like, we're onto the game, like we understand it, and so I think a lot of people unfortunately have pulled away, and this person is lonely now. Dang it, I keep you. This person.
Good job, babe.
I'm trying so hard. This person is lonely and has been exposed, and but continues to do it.
But see, here's the thing I was going to try to sneak in earlier, but I didn't want to interrupt your train of thought. But like, the frustrating part of this is that the one thing that could reset this relationship and start the process of healing is the one thing, like you and I were talking about yesterday. It's like my prerequisite for forgiveness is forgiveness must be asked for. Like if you have wronged somebody, and like you and I have this conversation as a married couple, like there have been times you and I have dramatically hurt each other's feelings, intentional or otherwise, and like you have to admit at least that you acknowledge this other person's feelings were hurt. Like there are times when I'll apologize for hurting your feelings because my tone was harsh, but I usually don't apologize for what I said specifically, because in my head I'm like, I said what I said and I meant what I said. I did not mean for it to come out the way it did, and the way I said it is what hurt your feelings, and I'm apologizing for my tone. But you have to apologize and ask for that person's forgiveness before forgiveness can be given. And like with me, I refuse to forgive and forget until a person's given an honest, genuine request for that forgiveness. Because when a person genuinely apologizes to me, I take that in good faith as you're acknowledging that what you did was inappropriate and upset me. You're going to try genuinely not to do it again. And because of that, we can reset this relationship back to where it was, and we can start over. Or not start over, but like we can pick up where we left off. But if the apology is not given, or if it's given, like I said the other day, kind of perfunctory, like, well, I'm sorry. It's like, well, F your I'm sorry. I don't believe it. I don't feel it. I don't think you really are sorry. I think you're just saying I think you're saying the words to get the result you want, which is lying. Mm-hmm. And I'm not giving it. And I think that's what I see in this relationship you're describing that's frustrating to me, is because if this person would just come clean, like, not to use a biblical reference, but it works really well, but like if they would literally confess their sins and, bathe in the waters of forgiveness, then I think a lot of this relationship would be repaired fairly quickly, honestly. But it's this is years upon years upon years of wrong. But I guess what I'm saying is, like, that would at least give everyone else in this relationship some kind of a starting point to reestablish that bond. But without the apology and the request for forgiveness, there's nothing to discuss.
Well, we've always told Piper, your apology has to come with a change. Like, your apology is just words unless you change the behavior. So, for instance, if, I don't know, I can't remember any certain time where, we have said this to her before, but, she's 11 years old now, and we've been saying this to her since she was a little kid, that when she would come and she would apologize for her behavior or something that she's done or whatever, we have always told her we expect change with your apology. And so to me, an apology, and I tell my students this, an apology is no good unless the behavior changes. And they kind of look at me and kind of like, what do you mean, Miss Rabelais? And it's
Which
like,
tells me that probably not many people in their life prior to you have actually held them to the standard that you will modify your behavior.
yeah. And the kids get it. They really do get it. And for instance, I can think of there's 2 little boys in one of the grades that I teach, and they were just complete buttholes one day. Like, I don't know what was going on with these kids, but this day was just like we crawled through the lesson because they were just so interruptive and just disrespectful to me, disrespectful to their peers, and it was just a really, really hard day. And luckily, their homeroom teacher, when, she always would come in and say, how was the day or whatever. And I'm an enrichment teacher, and so I'm a fun teacher. And when they come to me, it's not, yes, I teach math with STEM, but it's not like a core subject. And so they're coming to me looking to have fun. Well, I also have to do a job and teach standards. So I have to actually teach you something. So when the teacher comes and says, how was your day? How were the kids or whatever? I have to give a report. And I'm going to give the teacher an honest report because I want her to know that the behavior of some of her students just weren't where they should have been. That doesn't mean that tomorrow we're not going to start fresh. Because tomorrow we will start fresh, because maybe those babies were having a really bad day, or maybe something happened to them on the playground and this is their reaction to having their feelings hurt or something like that. So I understand that, but they still have to be held to a standard of, I get it. Trust me, I get it. I remember being bullied. I remember being sad. I remember being mad. I get it. But you still have to have manners when you're in school. Like, you still have to have manners.
It sounds like... Sorry, go ahead.
So this teacher really reflected with them even more than I did and made them write me an apology letter. And so when they brought me their apology letter, we had a nice, sweet talk. And I told them, these letters are wonderful. They make my heart so happy that you would write these letters. But with this forgiveness letter, with this apology letter has to come change. And one of them, literally, you know how when your dog hears a sound and they go, what? One of them literally did that, like, what? What does that mean? And so I explained to them. So what I'm getting at is that even though this person is a senior citizen, literally, like, been on this earth long enough to know,
eligible for a discount from AARP.
Go into IHOP and get your discount on your pancakes kind of thing. They should know better. And you would expect that of this, of someone of that age to know better. What I'm finding, I'm not hitting, I'm just sliding, and I won't, okay. I'm getting fired up now, so I have to put my hands behind my back so I don't hit the table.
Should I get you a towel so that it damps you hitting the table?
No. Anyway, they should know better. And they should know that with an apology has to come change. And that is such a refusal on their part. Like, in fact, like you said, the apologies are half-hearted, and they're really just to circle back to, okay, I've apologized, now forgive and forget. And the forget part is never going to happen. And you keep saying, if an apology, a true apology were ever to happen, maybe it would start, an ember or something to have this connection again. And I just don't think that will ever be there again, because I can't even count how many times I've been burned by this person.
But I guess my point
completely.
Is, I don't think you've ever been given a true apology, because a true apology would be followed by change.
Yeah.
So that's why when I think we're saying the same thing, I think none of y'all have ever gotten a real apology. A real apology would be heartfelt. It'd be unconditional. It wouldn't be, oh, but you hurt my feelings too. And it would
Well,
and
I
it
don't
would
know if I
involve
said that. Yeah.
and it would involve a change in the behavior. And because you're not getting a real apology, there can be no reconciliation or, it cannot happen. It can't even start. So I guess what I'm saying is like, I hear what you're saying, but I would counter with, y'all have never gotten a real apology. I don't know
Because this
if you-
person doesn't believe that they've done anything wrong.
and therein lies maybe the root problem of if they don't even acknowledge their own part in the disagreement or the hurt feelings or the whatever, they are incapable of issuing an apology.
Yeah. One of the comments that just came up says everybody forgets do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And yeah, that's the golden rule for sure. I know that with this person in particular, this made up false reality that they live in, they believe that they're doing unto others. Like they believe that they are the most helpful, sweet, passionate person on this earth, and they just can't understand why they are treated with so much hate and ill intent. And why are you bullying me, and why are you being so ugly? And if you only understood, I agree with you, and I think for the most part, for majority of the people, I think that works for sure. We tell Piper that all the time. If you don't want someone to be ugly to you, then you can't be ugly to them. Like you can't expect someone to do something for you that you won't give to them.
And and this is where I'll be the first to admit, like this is where I've failed in the past, because for a lot of years I kind of took the position of whatever energy you give me, I give back. So if you're ugly to me, buckle up, Buttercup. You're about to get double what you gave me. And I know that wasn't the right way to be. And I know that I carried that negativity with me. I've tried to get better in more recent years about like just letting go of the anger while still holding that person accountable for what they did. But I mean, yeah, 110%. It's the like, I roll my eyes at the golden rule, not because it's not a good rule, but because we've all heard it so much, and it's so deceivingly simple to say. But it's very difficult when you add emotions to the soup to actually act on. Especially when you're dealing with a person who has wronged you. Like, it's, like going back to Christian faith, like we are directed to treat our enemy as our friend and our neighbor as our family member. And when you're dealing with a person who has hurt you, especially repeatedly, it's really, really difficult to give that person any grace. I don't want to say to forgive them, but like it's really difficult to continue to treat that person as you would want to be treated. But that's what we are called to do. But
I feel like too, because I know my sisters have, I would believe that my niece has treated this person the way that we would have liked to be treated. We're in a position with this person that the dynamic of the relationship was one of, well, you're the child, you have to give respect. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm the adult,
respect your
you're the
elders,
child.
yeah.
Yes. Which is also, that's funny you said that, because that's another phrase that's been thrown around lately too, is respect your elders. Like, I am supposed to just
give blanket respect.
Yeah, give blanket respect because you're older than me. Like, that's not how this works. And I'm also not a child anymore.
Well, and let me turn that ever so slightly. This sounds very similar to like the discussion we've had in the past about like husband and wife dynamic with a Christian backing, in the fact that like, a lot of people have used passage from the Bible to try to justify like your wife, you have to submit to your husband, and some people bristle at that idea. But then my response has been, but if your husband is leading his life in the image of Christ, and if he's leading his family in the Word of God, then submitting to your husband should never be I'm allowing a person to abuse me. It should always be I am following side by side with this man in our Christian faith. So I guess like that's where and to tie it back into the whole respect your elders, I think a lot of that comes from the idea of like honor your mother and father, which if your mother and father are behaving like a mother and father and treating you as they should treat their child in a loving, protecting way, in the way of being not just the provider, the protector, but the teacher, to show them how to be a young woman or a young man, to show them how to walk the footsteps of Christ, then yes, you should absolutely honor your mother and father. But if your mother and father, as an example, or any elder, has poisoned that relationship, then I say, how do you honor that person when they don't honor you and they don't honor the Lord? They don't honor their own obligation in the eyes of God to look out for this child. If they don't do that, you can't, it goes back to forgive but don't forget. Mm-hmm. How do you get past that, and how is the child held to honor your mother and father, honor your elders, if the elders aren't honoring God and aren't honoring that child? Yeah. All of these things to me have to be a two-way street.
Well, and what point, so using parents as an example, honor your mother and father. At what point, they'll always be your mother and father. And I think I don't know, maybe this is just little seeds of doubt or, thinking further into my religion and all that stuff this is going to sound really bad.
You just got to let it out.
Is honor your father and mother an oppressive, something that kept children in line? You know what I'm saying? I know that that's a commandment, and God gave those as part of the 10 Commandments, was to honor your father and mother. But yeah, you're right. How do you honor your father and mother when your father and your mother did nothing to deserve honor?
Well, and again, I view that in those commandments work as long as the person you are dealing with is also honoring their obligations. Mm-hmm. And the moment they stop honoring their obligations, it's not like you have carte blanche to just, like shank them or anything crazy. But at that point, I would argue your obligation to honor them, to respect them, has been severely diminished according to whatever they've done to poison that relationship. If I'm wrong about that, me and my creator will have a very long discussion when I get to the pearly gates about how badly I screwed up reading his word. But, I'm sure it won't be the only time he tells me, I see how you got there, but that wasn't exactly where I was trying to lead you. Mm-hmm. But,
Yeah, and it's like Nina says in the comments, the I'm sorry always came with a condition, a but. And
what did I tell you yesterday about the word but?
I don't remember.
I said that if you say the words I'm sorry and but is anywhere in that sentence, then your entire I'm sorry was BS.
Yeah.
That sounds harsh, but that's just the way I feel about it. Like
a true apology can't come with a condition. It can't come with a blame. Nina, you're being gaslighted. It's your fault because they acted that way. And that's how it has always been with this person that I continue to talk about. It's always been, I acted that way because of you. You did something and it made me really mad, or you did this and it really hurt my feelings. And oh gosh, there's so many things I want to say, but it's totally going to out who we're talking about.
How would you react to I love you but?
Oh God, yeah. That's
except in jest when I say I love
that
you.
Hurts.
Except in jest when I say I love you but you're nuts.
Oh, well, I love you, but you're nuts. That's the truth.
Yeah.
That is not a false reality that we're creating here. Anyway, I don't know. I don't know where else to go with that. I think this person, these people, because it is a very dynamic duo, will always be in my life. They will always be in my sisters and my nieces, and they will always be in my life. They will always be a part of this family at some point, some way or another. And I battle with myself not daily, because a lot of times it's out of sight, out of mind. Like I haven't texted or they haven't texted me. I haven't called, they haven't called. So I get really good about getting hung up in my own world and doing my own things, which is how it should be. In fact, I watched something last night. Your parents, they have they have kids, right? So they have their family. And then what is supposed to happen, and this is what I totally firmly believe, is that those children grow up, they get married, they have their own kids. They've created their own family. And yes, they're still part of the family, but this is their family. That means that we have created our own family. Mm-hmm. We are still part of the Rabelais family and the Howes family, but this is our family. We call the shots, we make the rules, we make the conditions. Everything has to be done with our family. And he even made this point when he was saying this, and it's true. I think it is true to us. We can go to our parents' house. I'm sure if we called up either one of our parents and said, "Hey, do y'all want some company today?" Both those sets of people will be like, "Yeah, let me put something on, or we can make some burgers, or whatever.
Let me put some pants on."
Yeah. But what's supposed to happen, and I'm not saying that this happens with our parents, but what's supposed to happen is, because we have created our own family, those people should not have a key to our house. Like, we can go there. Like, I know I have a key to you. Well, I used to have a key to your parents' house.
I have a key to my parents' house, but that's mostly because, for a while there were some health problems and everything going on that I was having to help manage. So, like, I needed the ability to get into their home without breaking a window.
So what I'm saying is, they have their family.
But they don't have permission to come into our home without,
or into our family without. And if my father-in-law is watching this, I don't mean anything. Like, I'm not trying to be negative or say anything.
He will probably agree with what you're about to say.
He will, because your parents have been so amazingly awesome with honoring our wishes. Our parents should, when our kid is over there, should say, what is their schedule? What are they allowed to eat?
Rules?
What are their rules? Because we're going to abide by those rules. Now, your parents are a lot better than my parents are.
There's history there, though, with their relationship with their own parents, though, that has pushed them to be that way, where they've been on the other side of it, where they've been the parents with the child at grandma and grandpa's that was allowed to run wild. Mm-hmm. And then that's why they've had the experience about, like, we are not going to do that to our grandkids.
Yeah.
But I was going to say, like, this is the moment in the show where I say, do you know what your father-in-law would say? You've probably heard...
Oh, my God. If y'all knew how many times I've heard that in my 20 years with this man.
I told
do you know what your father-in-law would do at this point?
Do you know what
your father-in-law would say? I know more about my father-in-law. I love my father-in-law.
I hope you do, because you're married to...
Yep. What would my father-in-law say?
Your father-in-law told me a long time ago, when I was... Even before, like, marriage was really on my radar. But he said that when you get married, he said, you will never stop being my son. Your wife will be my daughter, your kids will be my grandkids, but he said, but I am not your responsibility. Your wife is your responsibility. Your children are your responsibility, and you may never do anything to try to help me or your mother that hurts them. So my father really built the idea in my head at a fairly young age that, like, once I leave the net,
Once you leave the nest.
Once I leave the nest and I create my own family, that is my family. That's my responsibility, and I have to do what's best for this little chunk of the Rabelais family, not compromise us to try to, abide by his wishes or his commands. Like, it's an interesting situation, because, like, I've come in and out of, or I've seen so many other family dynamics that are still very hierarchical, where, like, grandma and grandpa gives the orders and everybody all the way down has to abide by them. And I didn't come from that family. Like, my father really regarded me as, like, once you are moved out, married, and paying your own bills, you are your own man, and I now have to negotiate with you as a man, not as my child, my subordinate. So I think that's a lot the reason why, like, my parents have been very much like they've never just hit the front door without calling. My dad occasionally, like if he's on his way back from the next town over this way, heading back home, he'll pass right by our house, and sometimes he'll just call and be like, hey, do you mind if I stop in? But he's never just shown up unannounced, because to him, golden rule, he would not appreciate if somebody just popped up on his doorstep at anything less than an emergency without a phone call ahead. It's basic manners. But he regards you and I as adults that he has to deal with as equals, not as subordinates. And I think going back to honor thy mother and thy father, I think that is the inverse side of that, is that you have to honor your child in this relationship. When they are truly children, you have to be the protector, the provider, the teacher. You have to regard them as like a gift from God, which is what children are, in my opinion. And you have to regard them as that gift, and you have to treat them like you would a gift. And then as that relationship matures and they become adults in their own right, you have to continue to honor them as adults, as equals. They might be older, more established, more experienced, but you and I at this point are like 39 and 40, paying our own bills, raising an 11-year-old. Like we're not teenagers anymore. We're no longer in a position where it'd be appropriate for them to talk to us like subordinates or like kids, like our daughter is. And I feel like when you have that relationship dynamic where you are being honored as an adult, then honoring that other person as your parent or your elder even, because like there are people I know who are older than me, quite a few that I know through the other podcast, and yeah, I give them hell because they give it to me, but like I do respect them as my elders. I do respect them as being people who know more, who are more established, and who are very free with giving me advice and information, and I appreciate that. But they give that advice from the perspective of, you're an adult, you're free to take it or leave it, this is what I think would help you. And because they respect that relationship, I can respect the relationship. So
yeah,
I think
when that other person, I mean, if you don't take that person's advice or whatever, how you just said, take it or leave it, it really shows the maturity of the other person if when you don't take it, their little feelings are hurt.
Very true. But and again, I think the unstated part of that is why the feelings get hurt. Because when you don't take the advice, it's not that you didn't take the advice, it's that you didn't do what you were told. Remember how we started off talking about how sometimes this is used as like an oppressive technique of, you're under my thumb, you have to do what I say. Well, when you get to a certain age, they can't force you. I can't force you to do anything you're adamantly opposed to, and I'm your husband. So what power does somebody that doesn't even live in this house have over you as an adult? So I think to me, like, that's what I perceive, is when a person gets their feelings hurt because you didn't do what you were told, then I look at it as, what part of our relationship made you think I was within your control in the first place? Comes back to that whole bargaining with another person, even a person younger than you are, as an adult.
Yeah, I think just like one of the comments that was just made, I think it's the difference between when your parents are able to cut off the whole, well, you don't have to sit at the kids' table anymore because you're an adult. They see you as an adult now. Yeah, you're still their child, but now you're an adult. And then the parents that you're still my child, you're still a child, and I can still tell you what to do and how to do it and when to do it and all that stuff. And then if you don't do it, then you're a disrespectful little brat.
You're in trouble.
And you're in trouble. But the punishment, because now I can escape to my own house or I can whatever, is emotional. It's an emotional punishment. It's I'm not going to call you for a few months, or you've hurt my feelings so bad, and I'm just going to hang on to it forever and hold a grudge. And this person, man,
and that's the narcissism.
Can hold a grudge I know that there are grudges that they're going to go to the grave with, And that's
the narcissism.
That's the narcissist in them. And it's just so sad. It's sad that even as adults, you're still taken advantage of emotionally. and I will say that this person, yeah, still has a hold on emotions. And I think for a lot of us in the family, we have been able to recognize traits and different things that are, patterns and all that stuff. And we're able to say, okay, no more. You're not getting my energy anymore when it comes to this or that or anything. Maybe just altogether, you don't get any energy from me. I don't remember where I was going with this, but those people, ultimately, isn't the end goal to raise an adult? Isn't the end goal to make sure that once your child isn't of adult age, that they can leave and take care of themselves? And
doesn't that sound familiar?
Anyway, I'm getting so mad right now. Like, I'm getting thinking of all this stuff and talking about it. I'm going through the emotions of mad and sad and anyway.
This is therapy.
Yeah, right. It's very sad to me that as an adult I function as an adult, I'm still treated as a child, that they believe that I can't make my own decisions. It happens so frequently because I still talk to this person. I still talk to these people. And it's like, this was my first summer off because this was my first summer as a school teacher. And the question kept coming up of, well, what are you going to do this summer? You're going to be so bored. You're going to get so depressed. You're going to get, just layer upon layer of, I know what's going to happen to you this summer. I know.
Questioning your decisions.
Yeah.
Which is a pattern.
Which is so crazy to me because this person has always been, excuse me, this person has always made me feel bad about being a working mom. There were moments when I and if you can remember, if you've listened, I was going through horrible postpartum for the first 3-4 years of Piper's life. As soon as I had Piper, I went to a deep, dark, horrible postpartum. But I had to go back to work. I had only 3 months off for leave, and so I had to go back to work. And I was called on the phone almost daily. And I don't know if I told you all the time, so I told you all the big times.
You didn't tell me a lot of it, which I think was, again, you trying to be the peacemaker because you knew how I would have reacted. And it would have been not violent in the way of physical violence.
It ended up getting to where it needed to be.
Yeah.
But this person would call, they would call me and say, "You're such a bad mom. How can you do this to your kid? What did you think was going to happen when you had a baby? Did you just think that everybody else was going to raise your kid?" And I'm literally can hear the voice saying these things. These are the exact words that I was told. It's just a horrible thing. It's a horrible thing what you've done to this kid. You've had this baby. You don't deserve her. You don't deserve to have a baby. I know I've said this, but they just kept saying, what did you think was going to happen? Did you just think that everyone else was going to raise her while you went back to work? You should be home with this child. And it was just so, God, it was so, I was already feeling like a bad mom because, if you're a new mom, don't get on social media and see what other moms are doing, because that's just going to really upset you, because sometimes women become mothers and it is rainbows and unicorns. They don't have any sort of hormonal fluctuations that hurt them. They don't go into postpartum. They can live with 3 hours of sleep a day. They've got this. They are doing what their body is able to do. And then you have women like me that if I get 3 hours of sleep, I am going to spiral into a deep depression and panic and hallucinations and all that stuff. So I was already dealing with that. But then I had this person coming back to me saying how horrible of a mom I was, when I already knew I couldn't breastfeed her. I wasn't doing all the things, quote unquote, that moms should be able to do. And I am working in New Orleans, so not only am I gone 8 hours a day, but I have an hour on the front end and an hour on the back end. So I'm gone 10 hours a day. And you were gone, and we were working. And so this one time I'm on my way home and I get that phone call and I'm checking in. How's the baby? How was the day? Whatever. And then I just get berated with all of these horrible things that you shouldn't tell anyone anyway, but you certainly shouldn't be telling that to a new mom who is already questioning her abilities of being a mom. And I remember coming home and telling you, I mean, I was a mess. I was a mess. And we made the decision that person was no longer allowed over here. They weren't allowed to help. They weren't allowed to have such an influential part of our kid's life and mine. So for my sanity, that's when walls, the bricks in the walls started to be built. And so I started taking mental notes of, this is what this person is capable of. It should be a loving relationship. There should be love that comes out of this person's mouth. And all I'm getting is vile, just disgusting things being said to me. And the position that this person has in my life, you would expect love and encouragement and the things that a new mom needs with the position that this person has. And I was not getting that. And I can say that most of my life did not receive that. You know what I'm saying? So as an adult, it has been a little bit easier for me to step back and reflect and go, these are the things that have happened. I can forgive this person. I understand the conditions involved with this person. I understand there's a mental illness. I understand that there's narcissism. None of that is an excuse, because this person is still capable of doing hurt, doing wrong, doing bad. And therefore this person is very much kept at arm's length. And like I said earlier, with that comes guilt. I don't know if guilt comes with for everyone, but it does come with guilt, especially for me. And I know guilt has come with my niece, and because we're dealing with this person in a lot of the same ways. A lot of the same things have happened to the two of us, whereas with my sisters and other people in the family, it's all been different. Like I said earlier, like this person creates different realities, and different lies are told to everyone else. And we're not supposed to talk, because then all of those, I'm telling you, well, this is what this person said. And then they're going, well, that's not what they said to me. This is what they said. And then all of a sudden we're all kind of going, light bulb. We've been played. We've been played for 40 years. We've been played for 50 years. We've been played, whatever. And so the guilt is what I'm learning to deal with. I guess the end of the day, I don't know if I've completely forgiven this person or both of them. I don't know if I've completely forgiven them. I think that's a very long road that I have to go down, because I still allow this person, these people, to be a part of my life. In some capacity, they're still a part of my life. Therefore, any type of time with them or whatever can give way to abuse, can give way to the narcissism and to the things that they are just so programmed to do. So I guess I'm continually hurt, but I'm not hurt and then going, feeling bad about myself. It's just kind of like, they did it again. That's fine. I can choose not to interact. I can choose to not take the bait, because there's a lot of bait that gets dropped in front of my face, because I am the peacemaker and because this person likes to exploit that. But I've learned how to deal with them. Mm-hmm. Forgiveness is hard. Forgiveness is hard for me in this instance, mainly because I see what they're capable of. Like, I can see their potential. I can see that they could be nice people, functioning people. Like, they have the potential to turn it around at the end of their life and make things right. But then the hurt comes with they'll never change. They'll continue to do this.
Likely not.
I don't ever see them changing. I don't. I think the worse the mental illness gets, the worse the age gets, the worse the medical conditions get, the further and further into their false reality they live. And I absolutely refuse to live there with them. I am not going anywhere near that. And so, for instance, recently having a conversation with this person, their bait dropped in front of me and I didn't take the bait and I didn't respond, and the conversation fizzled out, but then it went to such a weird, creepy place because I didn't respond how they wanted me to in this first conversation. So now they were going to see if they amped it up a little bit more, if they made it a little bit more showy and creepy and whatever, how will I respond then? And I still didn't respond. I still didn't take the bait and just, whatever. Okay. I don't want to see that. I want no part of it. And, just douse the fire before it got big.
Let the air out of the balloon.
Yeah, and that's the only way to deal with a narcissist. You can't give them any satisfaction in what they're doing. It's such a well thought out game. It's they this is my brain. I'm a very visual person, but it's like here's the starting point, and there's like this little box, and this little box has many threads that come out of the side of the box, and these threads all lead to one thing, and that's to control the other person in any way, emotionally, physically, whatever.
So they keep pulling on different threads until they find the one.
Yeah, so they keep pulling and pulling and pulling. Well, if you don't give them the reaction that they're looking for, then all those threads are broken. There's nothing that works for them. Now, is it going to piss them off? Yes. You should see a narcissist when they've lost control of someone. It can get scary at times. And I've never been scared. There have been times where this person has lost control of who they're trying to manipulate. The fits, the literal tantrums that are displayed by this grown adult is a little comical and very sad.
I don't think it's sad. I find it kind of hilarious, honestly, because the person you're talking about, like, I have directly and intentionally challenged their authority over my family with exactly those words of, I'm dad and I'm husband, back down. And that
yeah, and I would like to believe, and I really, really do believe this, our family hasn't been affected as much as others because they're scared of you. Because they're scared of they're scared of the fact that you have no qualms, nothing about breaking down every single lie, every single manipulation, they are so scared that you can, in just 2 minutes, totally dissolve this reality that they've created.
Well, I think at some level, like...
Wait, hang on. I also believe that they do not focus a lot on our family because they know, especially me, because they know that you'll step in.
Yeah. Like the situation you were talking about earlier, all the grief you were getting about being a working mom, like when you brought that to my attention, there was immediate action and consequences for it. Which I had even told you at that point. I'm like, if you had told me this earlier, this would have gotten fixed earlier. Because, at the end of the day, like, my own parents know that the only thing that is in control of me is me. Like even you and I've had the conversation of like, I'm an adult and I'm a grown man, and if you want something from me, like we have to discuss it and bargain. We have to come to an agreement, because the feeling of someone attempting to control or manipulate me elicits a very immediate, emotionally violent reaction from me. I don't tolerate it.
Yeah.
And I do think that is why a lot of people try to give you and Piper a lot of space, is simply because they know at the end of the day, like if you anger the large angry bearded man, there will be consequences. Those consequences might be as simple as, I just lose your number and ignore you so hard you forget you exist. But those consequences might also be something a little more direct. You're not, I'm a husband and a father. You're not going to mess with my family. You're not going to threaten my family. You're not going to harm them emotionally. I will not permit it.
Yeah.
But I guess to try to wrap this up, like I agree with what you're saying, that I think at some point, especially when you recognize that you're never going to get a genuine apology from this person, I still think you have to let go of the anger and the hurt. You have to do that for your own emotional, mental well-being. But I also think if you're going to let go of the hurt and the anger and the emotion, you have to change how that relationship is conducted to shield yourself from them. It's like,
because the hurt continues.
well, let's make an analogy here. If you're a firefighter and you're walking into a burning house, you have two options. You either put on the stuff you need so the house fire doesn't burn you alive, or you put out the fire. If you can't put out the fire, you put on your armor.
Yeah.
There's no other way around it, because to walk into that house fire without all the proper clothing, you will not come back out.
Yeah.
To walk into the fire of a toxic relationship without your emotional armor on, to guard your emotions and your heart, to walk into it knowing these are the things this person is going to do to try to twist me, and I have already thought about it in advance, and I'm not going to take the bait. I'm not going to react. To walk into that relationship without all those tools means you're going to get burned again. So it's one of those things of, you have two options here, and this isn't just you and me, this is the listeners. You have two options. Either three. Option one is you just end the relationship, which is impossible for some relationships. It's difficult for some, and it's pretty easy for the more casual relationships. You just end the relationship. Say, I don't want to play with you anymore. I'm taking my ball and going home.
Yeah.
You have the option to either try to get an honest apology from that person, and then act on that apology, give forgiveness, and restart the relationship if you feel like you can get an honest apology from them. And then option three is, if you know you cannot get an honest apology from them, and this is not a relationship you can completely end, then you have to change how you conduct yourself in that relationship. You have to, whether it's limiting contact, whether it's, no matter what your mechanism is, and it's going to change for everybody. But if you cannot end the relationship, and you know the relationship's toxic, you have to change how it affects you, one way or the other. Because I used to tell you all the time, as a husband, I try my best to limit, if I know something's upsetting me, I push it away from me. Like, you and I have this conversation all the time about social media, and about how, doesn't that upset you when you get into arguments on social media? And I'm like, honestly, most of the time I don't. I just laugh it off. But if I know something's upsetting me, I turn it off. I don't want that energy, because I'm going to bring it back to my wife and daughter. I used to tell you a lot the same thing about these interactions with these toxic people. If you continue to interact with them, you bring that toxicity home, and it's not a fault of yours. You can't help it. Nobody can. But it means you bring it home to me, and you bring it home to our daughter. So, in order to honor, I would say, your obligation as a wife and as a mother, you have to be intentional about, if I'm going to maintain this relationship, I have to limit the effect of that toxicity on me, for my own sake and for the sake of my family.
Yeah.
Anything else?
This topic could go on for...
You remember when you told me you thought this was going to be 10 minutes in and out? I was no,
I even told my friend last night, I was like, it's only going to be a 20-minute show. I'm really just going to say one thing, and then we're just going to have to really pull out a lot for this one, just to make it 20 minutes.
And what did your husband say? You can say the word again. No. I love when she says them right.
Anyway, speaking of toxic people, I'm joking. I'm joking. I'm really joking. Don't cry. I'm really joking.
That is my toxic trait. I love to be told I'm right.
I love you. Anyway.
Please don't squeeze that thigh any harder.
Thank you guys for watching or listening. We really appreciate the support, and we'll see you next week.
Yep. Happy Sunday, everybody. Raise the values heading out the door. Bye.
Bye.